Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Shazia Khan, and today's session is on the unit academic research skills in nursing and midwifery. And today we're going to be doing learning outcome 2, which is to understand the techniques that may be employed for academic research. Okay, just a summary of what we did yesterday. We looked at learning outcome 1, and that was looking at understanding different approaches to academic research. So we looked at what research was, why it was so important. We looked at the difference between primary and secondary research and the advantages and disadvantages of primary and secondary research. We looked at the question aims, why they need to be identified, and objectives. We looked at why research is so important within the field of nursing and midwifery, and in any field, to be honest, why we need to research things. We looked at qualitative research with reference to data analysis, bar graphs, things like pie charts. Also, we looked at interviews. We looked at SWOT analysis. We also looked at different observation methods, such as structured and unstructured, disguised and undisguised. We identified the importance of research when interviewing people and what we get out of research when trying to interview people and do surveys and things like that, and why they are so important to identify something as being good. Now we're going to be doing learning outcome 2, which is to understand the techniques that may be employed by academic research. So the aim of this unit is to introduce learners to the research process, the methods and the types of research while they are conducting a small-scale study. So research skills, looking at 2.1, we are going to look at discussing the types and uses of qualitative and or quantitative methods, which we looked a little bit at yesterday as well. And this is an expansion of that. We're going to look at 2.2, which is discuss the concepts of reliability, objectivity, and validity in relation to qualitative or quantitative approaches. 2.3, we're going to explain the relative merits of qualitative or quantitative data in context to the area of study. So qualitative data, as we mentioned before, is things like interviews, focus groups, participant observations, content analysis. And then you've got quantitative research, which is things like sampling, surveys, polls, questionnaires leading to gathering of numerical data. And that's things like, the fact that there's graphs there or pie charts to identify if something's good, or to identify any sort of numerical data and compare it. Qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitative is useful to gather in-depth information on an individual basis, but cannot be analysed statistically. It shows individual difference, gives the essence of the subject, and establishes a context. Some things cannot be put into numbers and deals with small amounts of information to a great depth. Whereas quantitative research is you're able to analyse statistically. It gives issues of trends. It gives testable results showing internal and external validity and reliability. It provides overviews and comparable populations. The reliability is the test that the same thing over and over again. Why do you think they test something over and over again? Why do you think reliability is so important? If you produce something, does it work straight away?
Not always.
No. So why do you need to keep testing it all the time?
To get the right results that you want at the end.
Yeah. Portia, yeah, you're right. To get the right results at the end and to identify that it is working what you are doing. You have to come up with the right solution. Validity is what it's supposed to be tested, and objectivity is the reduction of bias. So this diagram here looks at the issue of data collection and data analysis. So as you're going from the middle bit where it says data collection and data analysis, you have cross-sectional and longitudinal. You have mono method, mixed methods, and multi-methods. Then you have experiments, surveys, case studies, as we mentioned in the last session as well, action research, grounded theory, ethnography, and archival research. Then you have deductive and inductive, and pragmatism, interpretism, realism, and positivism. And these are all issues and strategies that are used in regards to identifying. So the positivism is things to do with philosophy, deductivism is to do with approaches, the case studies and action research in the middle is to do with strategies, and then mixed methods, multi-method is to do with choices. The longitudinal is to do with time horizons, and the data collection and data analysis is techniques and procedures. So research, I should say opinion. Research philosophy is an overarching term relating to the development of knowledge and the nature of knowledge. It relates to the development of knowledge and the nature of that knowledge, and it contains important assumptions about the way in which you view the world. And this was adapted from Saunders et al. 2009. Positivism, the stance of natural scientists ending law-like generalizations. And these are theories, okay? Emphasizing highly structured methodology to facilitate reflection. Jill and Johnson, 1997. Quantifiable observation, lending themselves to statistical analysis. Assuming researcher as an independent neither affects nor is affected by the subject of the researcher. Interpretivism, researchers as social actors, emphasize the details of the situation to understand the reality. For example, in this ever-changing world, circumstances of today may not apply in 3 months' time. Then some of the value of generalizability would be lost. So because of the changes in society, you know, things may not apply 3 months later, things may change. Arguing that rich insights into this complex world are lost if such complexity is reduced entirely to a series of law-like generalizations. Realism, direct and critical realism. Reality exists that is independent of human thoughts and beliefs. Recognizing the importance of understanding people's socially constructed interpretations within the context of broader social forces. An example, does window shopping fulfill dreams or increase frustration? So it's really, really important to look at direct and critical realism, you know, because everyone has different thoughts about things and people's perceptions on things is different. Research approaches. So there are two main research approaches. First one is deduction, which is theory and hypotheses are developed and tested. And second one is induction. This is where data are collected and a theory developed from the data analysis. So, you know, the induction one is where they've collected so much data to identify a certain concept, and through that data, a theory is developed. Research approaches deduction. So there's 5 sequential stages of testing theory. Firstly is deducing a hypothesis. Secondly, expressing the hypothesis operationally. Thirdly, testing the operational hypothesis. Fourthly, examining the specific outcome of the inquiry. And fifth, modifying the theory if necessary. And this was adapted from Robinson 2002. Research approaches induction, building theory by being concerned with the context of the events, using more qualitative data than quantitative data, using a variety of data collection methods, permitting alternative explanation of what's going on. So the major difference is that when we look at this diagram, it identifies the difference between induction and deduction. So let's go through the deduction one. Deduction emphasizes scientific principles. It's moving from theory to data. The need to explain causal relationship between variables. It's the collection of quantitative data and the application of controls to ensure the validity of data. The operationism of concepts to ensure clarity of definition. It's a highly structured approach, and the researcher is independent of what is being researched. The necessity to select samples of the sufficient size in order to generalize conclusions. And then the induction emphasis is gaining an understanding of the meanings humans attach to events, a close understanding of the research context, the collection of qualitative data, and a more flexible structure to permit changes of research and emphasize as the research progresses. Then a realization that the research is part of the research process, and for induction is less concerned with the need to generalize. So these are the difference between deduction emphasis and induction emphasis. The right of choice helps you to make a more informed decision about the research design. You think about which strategies will work for your research topic, because not all strategies work for a research project. You need to identify this. Adapt your design to cater for any of your constraints. And this was adapted by from Easter by Smith et al. 2008. Combining research approaches, things worth considering. You need to consider the nature of the research topic, the time available, the extent of risk, and the research audience. Why do you think when you're looking at your research, why do you think there's an issue of risk?
You need to consider the risk factor, because that will help you get the results that so that it won't the risk will not interfere with your results if it's something that can be solved, and so that you can, because if you don't consider all the risk factors, you might not get the right results that you want.
So do you think that when we're looking at a research project, there's bound to be some risk in there?
Yeah, there is.
Yes. And that will happen in any instance, in any research topic, because, and again, you need to identify these risks to be able to achieve what you want to do. Because, everything has a risk to it. So there are research approaches, deductive and inductive, research choices, research strategies, and time horizons. The process of research design is, it needs clear objectives derived from the research question. It needs to specify sources of data collection. They need to consider constraints and ethical issues. Also, classification of the research purpose. So it needs to be exploratory research, descriptive studies, explanatory studies, or casual research. So these need to be identified when you're looking at the research design. So we looked at this in the last one as well. So you've got the experiment, the survey, grounded theory. They identify a case study, an ethnography, action research, and then archival research. And this is more research design and strategies in the next session. Research strategies. Again, why do we need research? Information, problem, develop, understanding, launching new product is also research. Nursing, health and social care. Why do we need research in health and social care? It may be that we're launching a new medication. It may be that we are trying to launch a new medication for cancer, diabetes, a new medication for sleep apnea. So we need to be able to develop an understanding and try to launch this new medication. We need to look at terminology, solve problems in the NHS, satisfaction patient, examination of shortage of staff and legislation. Why is it important to do research on shortage of staff within the NHS?
Because they are the manpower of the backbone of the NHS. They are there, like if they are not there, there will not be NHS.
No, they wouldn't. The staff are, like you said, the backbone of the NHS, and there's a need to identify if there's shortage of staff. You know, in the NHS now, if you look at it, there is a shortage of staff, and more doctors and more nurses are needed. What about legislation? Why do you think it's important to look and if there's any sort of issues or information about legislation? Why do you think that's so important? If you're working with patients and you're working in the NHS, do you need to follow the law?
Yes.
Of course. Yes.
When the
Very
company
important.
let them
Why do you
get
think
more
the
law.
law is so important?
Because it concerns human being life.
Yeah, it could be. And also, what about when we follow legislation, we follow things like discrimination. So what does that mean? We can't discriminate against age, gender. We can't discriminate. What about laws in relation to how we care about someone, the Care Act? You know, we need laws in place for equality, diversity. And these laws, we need to, every time a new law is passed and the NHS has something to do with it, they have to launch the new information to everyone. So it's so important to follow the legislation. Aims. So what is to be investigated? An aim is a statement that what is to be achieved by successful completion of the dissertation. Aims should be expressed in one or two sentences rather than general, analytical, and not simply investigative. Some of this we've done yesterday as well, and it's just a summary of it. Okay, objectives, you explain how the investigation is to be carried out. They must underpin the aims, guide the intended process, be achievable, and be measurable. Writing aims and objectives, so choose verbs which allow you to achieve your aim. For example, analyze, evaluate, assess, determine, compare and contrast, avoid, discuss and describe. This aim we used yesterday was an aims and objectives of a research project we looked at yesterday as well. Aim was to determine whether the UK should remain a member of the European Union. Objectives is to review the literature on the EU, to evaluate the costs and benefits of the EU membership, to conduct primary research into views on EU membership, and to make recommendations. Why do you think it's so important when we're doing a research paper, to identify the aims and objectives?
To be able to know what we that's the research,
Yeah.
how to go about it.
Yeah, to able to know what research to do and how to go about it. So these are a couple of examples. Again, we looked at this one yesterday, is to evaluate the impact that Criminal Records Bureau Disclosure Service has on the recruitment team and their practices at Calderdale Research Service, Social Services, and to determine how problems experienced by CAB during the introduction of Disclosure Service have affected the recruitment team and their work at Calderdale Social Services. Example objectives: to review and critically analyse the literature concerning CRB recruitment and selection and relevant legislation, to devise and implement appropriate research methods to appraise the Disclosure Service and determine its effects on the recruitment team at CSS, to examine problems experienced by CRB and to evaluate their impact on recruitment at CSS, and also to generate recommendations for the development of future research. Techniques for generating and refining ideas, rational thinking and creative thinking. Rational thinking is to examine your own strengths and interests, look at past project titles, discussion, searching the literature and scanning the media. Creative thinking is keeping a notebook of ideas, exploring personal preferences using past projects, relevance trees, brainstorming and concept mapping. And again, a lot of this we looked at yesterday, which I want to kind of just clarify and summarize. Data, a good topic considers data availability. So there must not be too much or too little data. Considers access to the data you may be available but not in the way you need. Considers the time available. So no amount of enthusiasm can create the time you need for a research project. Could a research project take a long time to consider? Or is it quite quick?
No, it takes a long time to
Take
consider
time.
because you have to go over and over again.
Yeah.
Make sure what you are doing is right.
It's right.
Yeah. And also, you know, some researches you may not get information on. So it's important that you choose an area where you think you're going to get enough information on. Because if you don't get information on that area, is it difficult to complete the research?
Yes.
Yeah. So you need to make sure you're able to, you know, consider the availability, which is the next one, of resources, any sort of materials that are published. Consider capabilities and skills, and consider symmetry of potential research outcomes. And when you're doing the research, you look at the initial question is, what is the history of the topic? Has anyone else done research on that topic? If so, how? What research questions did they ask? What did they find? What kind of arguments are there about that topic? And what concepts and theories have been used on that topic? And what research methods and data collection tools did they use? Identifying research questions. So to make the topic researchable, it must be turned into research questions. It is research questions that drive the research. The purpose of identifying research questions is to formulate, clarify research aims and objectives. A useful approach is to begin with one general research question, and then this may lead to several more detailed questions. From the research topic, you should develop focused research questions. From research idea to research question. So the research idea is what we used was job recruitment via the internet. The general focus research questions is, how effective is recruiting for new staff by the internet in comparison to traditional methods? The research idea is the future of the trade union. The general focus research question are, what are the strategies? Research idea is to advertise and share prices. And the general focus research question is, how does the running of a TV advertisement campaign designed to boost the image of a company affect its share price? Types of research aims: to investigate, to inquire, to examine, to explore, to explain, and to study. Phrasing research questions as research objectives. And summarizing this from the last session, why have organizations introduced team briefing? The research objective is to identify organizations' objectives for team briefing schemes. Research questions: how can the effectiveness of team briefing schemes be measured? To establish suitable effectiveness criteria for team briefing schemes. Reviewing the literature and conceptualization. So learning objectives: to comprehend appropriate ways to construct your literature review, to understand the connection between literature review and research objectives, to recognize and develop your critical powers of review, and to be able to combine abstract concepts to form an integrated conceptual framework. Again, types of research, qualitative and quantitative, and strengths and weakness. And we looked at a lot of this yesterday as well. Qualitative research is collecting, analyzing, interpreting data by observing what people do and say. Why is it so important that we have this kind of research, quantitative and qualitative? Why did, because qualitative research is things like collecting information, including individual in-depth interviews and focus groups. Why is it so important to have qualitative data?
It's to get more ideas.
Get more ideas, yeah. What else?
It gives you more facts about the research that you're making because you are getting it right from the people.
Yeah.
Or from a data
Yeah.
that
So
you've
the qualitative
collected.
methods are more descriptive. So you've got a focus group. Again, you've got in-depth interviews. So you are interviewing person about something. You've got context analysis. And again, we looked at yesterday at case studies. You've also got case studies to rely on. Quantitative data collects and uses numerical data to explore, describe, or predict trends. And this research emphasizes objectivity and the control of contextual factors that may impact the results. Quantitative data can be survey research. Why do you think there's a need for questionnaires and, like online polls and online surveys? What do we identify from them?
To give more information and for people to know that such things is existed.
Okay, so if we give you a questionnaire on a type of medication, does it identify whether the medication is a good type of medication or not?
The result will give me the if the medication is good or not.
The outcome, yeah. The result will be given by that questionnaire. Is it always a clear result?
No, not always.
No. Why? Sometimes, do people sometimes just complete questionnaires because they have to and quickly do it randomly?
Yeah, and
Yes.
yeah.
And do you think that's a clear conceptualization of the research?
No.
No, not always, because sometimes people are in such a rush. You must know yourself as well that they don't answer the questionnaires that are given to them fully. And it's not just yourself. I'd be the same as well. Sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I don't really answer everything in a questionnaire that I'm given not correctly, but in detail. Okay. And sometimes having, open, closed questions is sometimes a good thing. Yes, no answers is it doesn't really identify certain things. So you've got correlational research, a comparison between two entities. Correlation research is conducted to establish relationship between two closely knit entities and how one impacts on the other and the changes. Casual comparative research. I'm going through these quite quickly because we've done a lot of this yesterday as well. So it's just an idea, a summary as well. Casual comparative research. This research method mainly depends on the factor of comparison. So these are the cause-effect equation between two or more variables. Then you've got experiential research. This is, the name suggests it's based on more theories. Research is done around proving or disapproving a statement. SWOT analysis. Now, we looked a little bit at this yesterday, but is it, when you identify what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are you able to identify clearly what your strengths and weaknesses are? Sometimes it's difficult, okay? So you might be good at English, you might be good at communication, you might be good at problem solving. Weakness might be that you don't have enough knowledge of the NHS, which is you need to be looking at trying to have opportunities to gain that knowledge. So such as training courses, jobs, and the threat might be, you may have young children, you might have family constraints. Hard skills and soft skills, again, teamwork. Soft skills, hard skills are teamwork, communication, problem solving, work ethics, interpersonal skills. Soft skills are leadership, negotiation, IT skills, knowledge of the NHS, and passion. Academic areas to think about, and these are on this English level test here. I think we can go on to that to see that. Can you see this? It says British Council Learn English. Yeah?
Yeah.
And this is an online test that you can access and have a look at what level of English you're at. And that could be identified as one of your skills and identified as one of your academic areas to think about. So try and have a look at that as well in your own time. Again, this was a similar diagram from earlier on. Experiment, survey, grounded theory, action research, ethnography, case study, and then it identifies the archival research that has been completed. Qualitative and quantitative research. So qualitative research is to gain a qualitative understanding of the underlying reasons and motivations. And the quantitative research is to the data generalize the results from a sample of population interest. If you're doing a quantitative research on a new product such as a medicine, would you, if you were a researcher, if it was about diabetes, would you get everyone who's got diabetes to talk about it?
For me, I will open it as a broad
Okay.
survey so that people that they don't even have can
Diabetes,
those
yeah.
that they don't have diabetes can be researched about, so that we know the difference, the proper difference between those that they have and those that they don't have.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to open it up. Sometimes people feel like it's not a good thing, to open it up to everyone, and maybe, just have it opened up to the people that have got diabetes. The difference between qualitative and quantitative data is that they collect different data. Their data collection methods differ. So quantitative studies rely on numerical or measurable data, and qualitative studies rely on personal accounts or documents that illustrate how people think or respond within society. So, there's a difference between both. The classification of survey methods. So, as we mentioned, telephone, we've got personal, in-home, mall, intercept, traditional telephone, computer-assisted telephone interviewing, mail and electronic, email and internet, computer-assisted personal interviewing, and mail interview. Now, do you think when we look at the different survey methods, do you think there's been a change over time in the types of methods that have been used? People do qualitative, quantitative research online now. Was this done before?
No.
Could you? No. What do you think? Because society's changing and social media and things like that, you're able to do your questionnaires online now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that makes it easy for people?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you think when we look at doing surveys and questionnaires online, it's easier for them to get involved in collecting the data easily and analyzing the trends and patterns and correlations?
Yes.
It's a lot easier online, isn't it, to come up with the result than doing it, through like maybe paper and things like that. So observation method, structured versus unstructured. Structured method observation, the research specifies the detail, what is to be observed, and unstructured, the observer monitors all aspects of the phenomenon that seem relevant to the problem at hand. Disguised versus undisguised, which we mentioned earlier on. The respondents are unaware of that they are being observed, and undisguised, the respondents are aware and they are under observation. Natural versus contrived. Natural observation involves observing behavior as it takes place in the environment, and contrived respondents' behavior is observed in an artificial environment such as a test kitchen. classification of observation methods. You've got personal observation, mechanical observation, audit, content and analysis, and trace analysis. Personal observation, a researcher observes actual behavior as it occurs. So what could be an example of this? A researcher observes actual behavior as it occurs. They've given us an example at the bottom, which is a researcher might record traffic counts and observe traffic flows in a department store. What could be personal observation in the NHS?
What you think is going to be good for what you want to do?
Okay, so this example was a researcher might record traffic counts and observe traffic flows in a department store. What could be in NHS? Could you record?
Then with NHS, it can be like the type of treatment people come to do.
Yeah, and could you observe that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
Through because when you come, you go to the reception, so
yeah,
they will know they will know the age as well, the age group that comes for specific diseases and stuff. So yeah, you can do that.
You can do that. You can also observe the amount of blood tests you've done in that day.
Yeah.
You know, that's an observation. So that's a personal observation. Then you've got mechanical observation. So they do not require respondents' direct participation. They do not require respondents' involvement. So pupillometers, voice pitch, eye tracking monitors, devices measuring latency, and then the audit. The researcher collects data by examining physical records or performing inventory analysis, and data here is collected personally by the researcher. Content analysis, and this objective, systematic and quantitative description of the manifest content of a communication. And this unit analysis may be words, characters, themes, space, and measures of or topics. Trace analysis, and this is based on physical traces or evidence of past behavior. The number of different fingerprints on a page was used to gauge the readership of various advertisements. Internet visitors leave traces which can be analyzed to examine browsing and usage of behavior by using cookies, and it identifies who's using what. 1.2, identify appropriate terms and concepts relevant to the understanding of a specific question. Again, when we look at primary data, this is really important in collecting researchers collecting data from the actual directly from the main resources. Why do you think it's so important to collect research directly from the main sources? So this is things like
it gives you the authentic of the how authentic the research is, because it's right from the source.
It's from, like they say, the horse's mouth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Primary research is the first-hand research. The author of the source generated the research that they are using, and secondary obviously is this is when an author of the source you are using gathers existing data. So you've got primary methods, you've got questionnaire method, focus groups, projective technique, stealthy technique, and interview technique methods. And then primary data, observations, interviews, telephone, online. Why do you think having to do all this data collection, why do you think it's so important? Why do you think
to give the best result? That's best result, like the facts.
Yeah. To give the best results. Why is that so important?
To make the research to be authentic.
authentic, viable, validity, you know, it needs to be valid. You need to be able to produce evidence that you have used, you know, primary and secondary sources, quantitative and qualitative research. Secondary data is research that has previously been gathered and can be accessed by research, such as previous research, government reports, official statistics, magazines, journals, internet. Methods to gather information, gather data, observations, questionnaires, experiments, interviews, action research, and case study. Data analysis tools are used to present data, charts, tables, diagrams, and lists. Example of a chart which we looked at in the last session, the difference between a smartphone and how much time is spent on a tablet, and you look at it through a bar graph and why it's needed. Has anyone used graphs or data like this to identify the difference between them? You know, has anyone used these previously?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier to look at that and be able to analyze what that is saying?
It's easier and better.
Yeah. Why do you think it's easier and better?
It gives a better view and understanding.
Yeah. So you could say that 35% of people play games on smartphones, and then we look at the tablets, and you can identify that more play games. 57% play more games on tablets than smartphones. So you're able to identify the difference, aren't you? And it's a lot easier for some people to do that. Example of a chart. Again, we looked at this in the last session. Chart with data tables and the differences, the test number, the sampling lengths, and you're able to work from a chart as well. Examples of list, and that was the college enrollment list. Again, definitions of reliability in research, you know, is so important. Validity is so important. The accuracy of research. Why is it so important that your research that you are doing is accurate? Why do you think that's so important?
It have to be up to date.
Have to be up to date. Why does it have to be accurate?
It have to be so that you know the facts, like it shouldn't, it should be it should be like right.
Okay. So what does accurate mean?
Accurate means the validity.
Validity. And why is that so important?
So that people that will research it and will look at it would know that the person that did it know what he's doing.
That's it. It's the fact.
Yeah. So you need to make sure your research that you're doing is valid, it's reliable, and it's accurate. Okay. You follow the VACSR approach, which is VACSR: valid, authentic, current, sufficient, and reliable, so that you've got it from good quality sources. You know, you need to be using sources out there that are good quality sources. You need to be using things like, you know, journal articles, you know, to identify certain concepts, to try to make sure that what you are using is, you know, is valid, and it's authentic, it's current, it's sufficient and reliable. And it also helps you in conducting any sort of, if you're looking at it from a teaching perspective, it helps ensure assessments are conducted correctly, so that they are valid, they are authentic, and they are current and sufficient and reliable. So again, we looked at the different types of research. We looked at analysis to present tools. We looked at VASCA, also the aims and objectives, and that will be part of your assessment. So your assessment, when we look at it next week, will be part of coming up with a research project. So have some ideas in your head in regards to what you want to do your research on, because that will be part of the session next week. So next week's session, will be on the fact that we'll be having an assignment discussion and learning outcome 3. Okay, all this is available for you on Moodles. If you want to go onto these links, these are quantitative links, and look, this identifies, can you see this? Identifies the different types of qualitative research. Can you all see this, that I've gone to this? Yeah, quantitative research, and gives you ideas of what it is, gives you examples, gives you ideas of research characteristics, and also gives you examples. So, you know, some examples, things like surveys and things like that. So you could actually go into this to get more tips and hints as well. And then you've got another link, which is quite good on here, which is the Tutor to You business link, which looks at marketing and qualitative and quantitative research, what it is, the advantages and disadvantages. So you could use that when you are preparing your assignment. Okay, so these links are on the back as references for you to use and to work around. Okay, so you've got the next sessions now. So we finished today's sessions, which was learning outcome 2. The next session now is next week on Saturday, and it is learning outcome 3. And then on the Sunday is it will be the assignment discussion. Okay, has anyone got any questions?
It's not about today's this thing. You know, last week I missed 2 sessions. Those 2 sessions, is it on Moodle?
Yes, everything's on Moodle. Everything has been
Okay.
put on Moodle for this is academic research skills module. Okay, the last module was academic writing skills, and that's finished, and that is all on Moodle for you now.
Okay. And that one, was there any assignment on it, or there was
Yes,
no
there was an
assignment?
assignment discussion. Yes, there was an
Okay,
assignment
I'll
on
do
that.
it.
The assignment discussion is also recorded on Moodle for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
If
if you cannot get access, everything is on Moodle for you. Okay.
Yes.
I search it. I can't find the
Yeah.
assignment anymore.
It's probably better if you start doing that assignment now, because you've kind of done the module.
I can't
Yeah.
find the
Yeah.
topic, please.
That's the reason I'm asking, because I went there and I couldn't find the assignment. Everything is there, but the assignment wasn't there.
On
It's
Moodle.
there.
It's
It's
there.
there. It's there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not there. I can't find it too. I can't find it.
You
I will
can't
check
find
again.
Can
it.
you tell us under which session we can find the assignment, please? Because even me, I went there, I can't find it. But if you can
Okay.
tell us, explain to under what, but normally Raja normally send it to us on WhatsApp after finish the topic.
So no, what I'll do is just 1 minute. I'll just stop this. So let me just finish this recording, and then I'll talk to you after. So
Okay.
if there's no more questions, thank you for attending this session, and the next session we'll do learning outcome 3. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Just
Thank
1
you.
minute. Let me see if I can stop recording now.